effectively the state will be authorizing another person to kill an individual. And once you cross that barrier, that's a very significant threshold, which will have very significant moral, ethical, and practical consequences. That, for me, is the most important problem. But there are all sorts of others, such as the effect that this will have on vulnerable individuals and the reality, and I think it is a reality, which is that it will be very difficult to enforce. It will be very difficult to be able to protect people who are in vulnerable situations, and inevitably, and it is, inevitable, there will be calls within a short period for the bill to be extended and for new legislation to pass. Now, obviously, Parliament's only being asked to pass this piece of legislation. We don't know exactly what it is yet, but it will be a particular piece of legislation with particular safeguards. And it will then have to pass another piece of legislation to improve it. But that is far more likely if you break this key barrier, as Canada did, as the Netherlands did, as Belgium did, as Oregon did, and as many other territories have done. Or a limited number of territories have done. And in all of those cases, or at least in the first three that I mentioned, the provisions and the safeguards have been relaxed, and the qualification for this has been increased to the extent that in Canada, it's been increased to such an extent that if you are disabled, you can opt to have somebody kill you, because that's the reality. So a doctor can be authorized to kill you if you are disabled. If you are unhappy and mentally ill, to the extent that that includes even if you are upset because you are too poor and you can't live what you consider a valuable life, you can ask a doctor to kill you. And if you are a child in Belgium, you can do this too, even though we don't consider children to have capacity to make the most important decisions in most cases in this country and in most countries. So that's okay. Not what the bill will be, but there will be a real prospect of campaigners doing that. And in addition to that, as I said, the European Court of Human Rights might conceivably find the United Kingdom in breach of discriminatory provisions in Article 14 or potentially Article 8 if it doesn't have an absolute barrier against killing individuals or the state authorizing people to kill, but it does restrict it, including preventing people who are so disabled that they can't self-administer drugs from administering those drugs. So those are really serious concerns. I don't think that there's any way of really safeguarding against those concerns.